Hi, my name is Laura Beavis and I'm a self-taught artist. I focus in realism and I usually work in the dry mediums, so pastel, graphite, charcoal, and colored pencil. Today's lesson is part 2 of my How to Draw Fur series, and today we're going to be working in graphite. This is the drawing that we're going to work on. For this lesson, all you need is graphite pencil, and I like to blend with a paintbrush, but you could also use a blending stump, a cotton bud, your finger if you don't have anything else. So really very minimal supplies for this one, but if you have any questions on what you should be using, feel free to message me before you start the class. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Let's get into drawing. For this lesson, we're going to be working with graphite, and we're going to work on just this little section right here. So this is what it's going to end up looking like. We got a little bit of graphite shine. The tools that we have for this lesson, I'm using the Faber-Castell 9000 series graphite pencils. The specific type of graphite pencils doesn't really matter here. It's, whichever ones you would like to use are completely fine. I used a 2H pencil, an 8B pencil, and a 2B pencil. If you don't have that full range, I would just try to make sure you have one that is an H, so it's a firmer lead, and then one that's a B, so it's a much softer lead, and then whichever is the darkest B that you have. If you don't have an 8B, then you may just have to put more layers on. And if you have one that's darker than 8B, then that's fine. You can use that too. You'll just be able to use less layers. And then I also used, again, the Mono Zero eraser. Again, if you don't have one of those, you can use a kneaded eraser and just point it into a point. I used, again, a paintbrush to blend, but you're welcome to use a blending stump if you would prefer to do that. We're using Strathmore paper. This one is the Bristol smooth surface, so it's a lot smoother than the vellum that we used for the charcoal. So I'm going to start with the 2B pencil, and I'm just going to start blocking in a little bit of this section here. The direction of the fur is going left to right. We have this highlighted section here and this darker section here, and that part is going up at a diagonal. So that's what I'm going to do right now, is kind of block in some of those darker portions, trying to keep the direction of the fur left to right. Even though the direction of the fur is left to right, you can see in the reference here, they're not all exactly straight left to right. So you want to make sure that some of them are overlapping, they're in slightly different directions, and this is again going to help you get a more realistic looking fur. I'm going to use an 8B and make some of this on the outside darker, because this is the section going into that really dark black. You still want to keep the pressure very light. We want to make sure that we can build up lots of layers here. So like we did in the charcoal lesson, I'm going to blend with a paintbrush again. So I like to use a paintbrush for graphite for the same reason I like to use it actually in charcoal, is the paintbrush will kind of pick up any of the loose pigment that's on the paper and it will spread it around. So this is a 2H, and what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to still make sure I'm following the general direction of the fur, and I'm going to use this for the entire section here. And so again, then after I do that, I'll just blend. This section in the middle, I'm kind of not putting much at all because I want to leave that as light as possible for now. So then I'm going to take my eraser again, just like we did for the charcoal, and I'm just going to go through and put a few highlights through. So what I did here was I just went and I did a little bit more pressure with the 8B to darken up this area. Again, this is this blacker area here, so we want to make it pretty dark. I like to have a few stray dark hairs that go through here and there because you see these portions underneath, where underneath the fur is black. Another reason for building up the layers when you're doing fur is that you get a more realistic look, because fur has layers and layers and layers of fur on top of each other, and that's how you get like a fluffy looking animal. So now that I have that portion kind of as dark as I want, I'm gonna go back and do some of the highlights, and these are really still just the mid-tone portions. There's some lighter parts that are the ones that are the brightest highlights, but I'm really more focusing on getting those, you know, mid-tone clumps first, and then we can go back and make sure that we've brightened, that the highlights that we tried to keep lighter are still as light as we want them. Just doing a few more final touches here. I'm gonna go back through and draw some individual pieces of fur that I see that are kind of on top of the clumps that we've drawn in so far. As you can see, I'm still not doing every single piece of fur, but having a few highlighted and a few darker on top of those larger clumps will help it look a lot more realistic. So there we go. That's our little section of graphite fur completed. I know on the camera here I'm getting that graphite shine that I was talking about. So you can see if I tilt it, see how much darker that is. See that shiny? So that's kind of what happens with graphite. But you know, tilting it like this, you can see how much that this side here was darker, like the black here. And that's just something to watch out for, be careful of when you're working in graphite. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful, and don't forget that if you want to watch the full version of this, you can check out my Skillshare course on this topic. If you liked this video and you want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.